In this video, I'm going to be answering questions from athletes on all aspects of your Ironman or 70.3 race day. We're going to go through pacing, nutrition, aid stations, and mental strategies. I'm Coach Rob Wilby from Team Oxygenaddict. Let's get started. Before we jump in, if you're preparing for an Ironman or a 70.3 and you think you'd benefit from coaching, there's a link in the show notes to book a membership call with me. I can find out all about you, your background and your goals, and if you'd be a good fit for being coached by Team Oxygenaddict. How should I pace the run in an Ironman or a 70.3? So you'll have heard me talk previously about different paces that we'll aim for. And before we talk about putting numbers on the paces, it's really, really important to reiterate this and stress it again. The actual pace doesn't matter. What matters is how you feel on the run, and specifically on the second half of the run. So all of your day should be set up so that the second half of your run feels really strong. We want to avoid the second half of the run tailing off in terms of pace, or worse, you being forced to walk because you're just so tired that you can't run anymore. So everything that you do, thinking about how to pace your run on race day, is also thinking about how you pace your bike and how you pace your swim and how you've approached the whole day. Now, that being said, it is possible for us to put some numbers on this. So if you go over to Jack Daniel's run pace calculator, what I've generally seen is the top end of E-pace is what's a best case scenario for most athletes on race day for the Ironman. And the top end of M-pace is what's the best case scenario for most athletes for racing the 70.3 distance. As I've previously said, it might be that those numbers on paper don't look that fast, but what you've got to remember is the run on race day is very, very different to the run in training. It's much, much more like the run on race sim weekend. And that's why the race sim weekend is so important. It gives you a really good feel for whether the pace that you're hoping to run at is realistic for what's actually going to happen on race day. And for some people it is, for other people it's not. For some people, they're going to be really, really strong all through the run. For some people, just getting to the finish line is going to be the success there. Either camp that you're in, the advice I'm going to give you is, you can really affect the second half of your run by how you approach the first half of your run and your bike pacing. And reminding yourself that essentially what you're doing here is you're setting up the back half of a marathon, or you're setting up the back half of a half marathon with a really long swim and bike ride. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. But give yourself the best chance of running well by thinking about this all the way through your swim and your bike. And if you're ever any doubt whether you're going too hard, my advice is you just to back off a little bit there. On race day, what I'm going to advise you do is you use walk breaks really cleverly in order to be at your best benefit. In training, I'll have athletes do the 9-1 run walk method with a minute's walk every 10 minutes. On race day, it doesn't have to be that exact ratio, but change where you're taking that walk break. So you have a minute's walk through the aid station at Ironman distance. I would break that down to 30 seconds walk at the 70.3 distance, just because you're not running quite as far. Certainly, the more competitive you want to be, you can afford to shorten that walk break. But the key thing to stress is anyone who's tried to run and drink at the same time, especially from an open cup, knows that it isn't easy. What you want to try and avoid is splashing sticky liquid, Coke, whatever it is, all over your face, all over your hands, all over your body. That's going to be really irritating, especially if you end up with wet shoes. So the walk break can be really good for those two purposes. It stops you getting covered in sticky carb drink, and also it gives your legs that break that means you can then continue to run with a good runner's gait. It also breaks the run up and means you're not thinking about running a whole marathon. You're thinking about running whatever it is, 18, 25, 30 runs of 9 minutes. So I'm a really big fan of that walk break. When you get to the halfway point, you can then make a decision, especially at 70.3 distance. You can push on for the finish at that point if you're feeling good. And you will make up tons of time compared to competitors and the you that went out too hard and is now slowing down. There's loads of time there left to make up time, but crucially, you will be running really well when the rest of the race goes really slow. You'll be passing a lot of people. That leads you into a really positive place. Can only be good for how you feel over the second half of the marathon. How should I pace the bike on race day to avoid blowing up on the run? This is a really great question because it gets to the heart of it. Whether you blow up on the run or not is usually not down to your run fitness. It's usually down to how well you've paced your bike relative to your bike fitness. Two parts of advice here. There's simple advice and more complex advice. The simple part of the advice is, again, at Ironman distance, 65 to 75% of FTP, slower athletes at the lower end, faster athletes at the higher end. At 70.3 distance, we're looking at 75 to 85% of FTP. And again, slower athletes at the lower end, faster athletes at the higher end. If you want to get more in depth on this, you can go and use the software package Best Bike Split. You can set up a free account. It's nothing to do with me and my company, but it's a brilliant piece of software. It'll take tons of data points about you. You can even analyze previous rides, and it will give you a really good idea for your aerodynamic drag numbers, what kind of speed you're currently getting for your power relative to your FTP and your body weight. You can then upload the race day course into it, and it will give you a really good, accurate guide for how fast you can expect to go for the correct amount of training stress score. So it totally does away with this question of, I don't know how fast I'm going to go on the bike. I don't know how fast it's reasonable to go. I don't know whether I'm going to meet the cutoff. It'll answer all those questions for you. Really great piece of software. Highly recommend you go and have a play with it. How much water, electrolyte and carbs should I actually consume during an Ironman or a 70.3? Okay, so by the time you get to race day, you should know all your numbers. You should have rehearsed this in training, but we'll put some numbers on it for you now just to give you a ballpark. First up, head over to the Precision Fuel and Hydration website. They've got a ton of information there that will give you personalized information if you've not done this already. Secondly, somewhere between 500 to 1,000 milliliters of fluid per hour is a good guideline. Now, that's a big range. You're going to need more if it's hot, but again, trust what you've done in training in similar situations. In terms of electrolytes, I'm going to advise everyone to have a minimum of 1,000 milligrams of sodium per 1,000 milliliters of fluid. For some of you who are very heavy or very salty sweaters, you're going to need even more than that. So PFH make 1,000 milligram sachets and 1,500 milligram sachets there. Got everybody covered. And in terms of carbs, again, you're going to have to practice this in training, but you're going to be somewhere in the region of 50 to 100 grams of carbs per hour. Now, it's going to be very individual. If you practice this in training in the lead up, you can gradually increase the number of grams of carbs per hour you take in. Somewhere in that 40 to 60 grams an hour is a good starting point, and then gradually increase by 5 grams of carbohydrate per hour. And so if you start off at, I don't know, say you start off at 60 grams an hour, you go 65, 70, 75, 80. What you're looking for is how you feel and how it affects you in training, essentially. You don't ever want to get to the point where you feel as though you've got GI distress, you need the toilet, you need to be sick. That's a sign you're taking too much in and you need to back it right off. But somewhere in that range there, you're going to find a number that works for you. Should I carry everything with me or should I use aid stations? So again, we've had questions here from athletes saying, I'm going to try and put 4 bottle cages on my bike so that I can carry 4 litres of fluid with me. You don't need to do that. You don't need any more than 2 bottle cages on a bike because there's going to be aid stations every 30k on the bike on most races. So my advice to you here is 1 bottle to carry fluid and electrolytes, 1 bottle to carry liquid calories, and then you can replace those as you go along from the aid stations. If you're racing any of the major European 70.3 or Ironman events, PFH is actually on course now. You can get pre-mixed bottles there, so that's fantastic for you. If not, you need to carry your own electrolytes and just get water. Then that way you've got control over it. And then you've got another bottle that's separate with your liquid calories in. That way, again, you can top up from aid stations, but you don't need to carry everything with you. There's no need to have 4 kilos extra fluid on your bike at the start of an event. So use the aid stations really sensibly. How do I mentally cope with the inevitable low points during such a long day? Okay, so the first tip here is expect them. You are going to have at least one and probably several flat spots where anywhere from you just feel a bit average to you completely questioning why you ever did this event, why you ever signed up for it. You're going to stop when you get to T2 and not even do the run. That's really, really normal. Everyone goes through the ups and downs, even the professionals. But bear in mind, often as your mood toward the race changes, that's a sign that your blood sugar is changing. An old coach of mine used to say, if you're feeling bad on the bike, slow down and eat. If you're feeling good on the bike, slow down and eat. And what the coach was trying to point out here was that if you feel bad, it's usually because of low blood sugar. If you're feeling good, it's probably a better opportunity to ease up on the power and get extra calories in ahead of time rather than trying to push on, potentially putting yourself into a fatigue hole later on in the event. You've got to mentally cope, firstly, by expecting those low points to come. And then my next piece of advice is always have a reason to finish this event that's bigger than whatever reason might get kicked up in the moment to stop the event. So always have the thoughts of what the bigger picture is that you're doing this event for. Maybe it's to prove something to yourself. Maybe it's to inspire your family members or your children, or to prove something to somebody. Whatever that reason is, only you can answer that. But I would advise you to spend some time ahead of time working out what that reason is, if you're not really clear on it already, and have that answer ready when you inevitably have periods where it's 40k to go on the bike and you feel really exhausted and there's a headwind and it's raining and you're cold and everything's saying quit. Have the answer then, because in the middle of an Ironman isn't a time to be negotiating with your own brain as to whether you continue or not. So expect flat spots, expect low spots, have ways ready to deal with them ahead of time. I hope this video has helped you. In the comments below, I'd love to hear how your Ironman or your 70.3 race goes and whether these tips have helped you. And remember, please like and subscribe to the channel and click the link in the description to book a coaching membership call if you're interested in having coaching for your next event.